Welcome to the deep dive. We cut through the noise, get straight to the insights you need. Today, we're looking at a story many of you probably know. It's ancient, from biblical texts. We're diving into the cautionary tale of Lot. You find him mostly in Genesis. And it's really powerful, how small choices, seemingly small, can just completely change your life's path, your character, even your legacy. Lot's story, it kind of shows how easy it is to drift, especially when you pick like the immediate win over the long view. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, and what's really striking about Lot is where he starts. He had, incredible spiritual advantages. He's Abraham's nephew. He's part of that whole foundational journey of faith.
Yeah.
From way back in Mesopotamia, all the way through Haran to Canaan, the promised land. So he saw God's promises firsthand. He experienced the protection, the provision. It was all there. He had this amazing head start, truly. But his choices took him down such a different road compared to Abraham. Abraham, the father of faith. That contrast, right from the beginning, it's key.
So they start out together, doing well, both become really, really prosperous, but then the success kind of surprisingly becomes the first big hurdle. How did, getting rich cause problems?
Well, it's a classic problem, isn't it?
Mm.
Their flocks, their herds, they just got massive. And the land, just couldn't sustain both of them, not adequately.
Mm.
So this blessing of abundance, it actually turned into conflict, constant fights between their herdsmen, always scrapping over grazing land, water access, that sort of thing.
And it wasn't just internal fighting, was it? I remember reading the Canaanites and Perizzites were around too. Did their presence make things, even trickier?
Oh, absolutely. It definitely ramped up the tension. Imagine these squabbles happening right in front of the locals. Not a good look. It risked damaging their reputation, stirring up trouble. It really shows how success can bring its own unique set of challenges. You need wisdom to handle it. But Abraham's response here, it's pretty remarkable. Instead of letting it fester, he steps up, shows incredible generosity, trust, really.
That is extraordinary, especially for him, right? Putting the relationship first. Do you think Lot even registered that? Or was he already thinking, what's in it for me?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Abraham, he's the elder. He's the one God made promises to directly. He could have easily said, look, I get first dibs. But no. He suggests they separate, and then he tells Lot, you choose first. Take whatever part of the land you want.
Mm-hmm.
This wasn't just being nice. It was deeper. It showed, kingdom values, God's perspective over earthly grabbing. He modeled selflessness, faith, and that put Lot squarely on the spot, tested his character.
And yeah, this next moment just lays Lot's character bare. It says he lifted up his eyes. He sees the Jordan Valley, lush, green, well-watered everywhere, like the garden of the Lord, like a land of Egypt. You can just picture it. Fertile, perfect for his animals, looks like jackpot. And so it says Lot chose for himself, all of it. Seems purely about the immediate material gain.
Exactly. And that right there, that's the first big mistake, the fatal flaw, you could say. Making a massive life decision based only on what looks good on the surface. Purely visual prosperity. There was zero spiritual discernment. He didn't start to think about the spiritual atmosphere of the place, or the kind of people living there. We find out pretty quick the men of Sodom were already known for being wicked, great sinners against the Lord. And he didn't seem to consider the impact on his family, their spiritual well-being down the road. This was step one, the first in a whole series of compromises. It hammers home that point. What looks great short-term might be spiritually toxic long-term. Lot is exhibit A. He put material stuff way ahead of spiritual health. And that set him on a path toward deeper compromise.
And you see that path pretty clearly, don't you? There's this gradual slide. First, he moves his tent as far as Sodom, getting close. Then later, he's dwelling in Sodom, living right in it. And by chapter 19, he's actually sitting in the gate of Sodom.
Mm.
That's a real progression, isn't it? From just being nearby to being fully involved. Can you break that down?
Yeah, it's a pattern we see again and again, unfortunately. Starts with attraction. Lot saw the good land, the potential wealth. He was drawn in. That leads to association. Moving closer, pitching his tent near those worldly values, which then makes accommodation easier. He starts living among them, getting comfortable, maybe numb to the environment. And the final step is assimilation, taking a position of leadership, sitting in the gate. That wasn't just hanging out. It meant he was an elder, a judge, someone with influence, conducting business, making decisions. So he'd fully integrated. He got the status, the comfy lifestyle, the prosperity. But look what he traded. The spiritual health of his family, his close ties with Abraham, any clear moral compass, and that sensitivity to spiritual things, gone.
And all that worldly success, it didn't actually buy him security, did it? In fact, it made him a target. There's that whole episode where four kings raid Sodom and Lot gets captured, along with all his stuff. His choice of neighborhood had pretty immediate, dangerous consequences. But even then, even as he's dealing with the fallout, Abraham does something amazing.
That's right. It's incredible, really. Abraham hears Lot's been captured. What does he do? Despite Lot's earlier selfishness, Abraham immediately gathers 318 of his own trained men, mounts a rescue mission, tracks down those kings, defeats them, and brings Lot back. Him, his family, all their possessions. It just screams loyalty, right? The enduring value of godly relationships. Even when someone messes up badly, you'd think that would be a massive wake-up call for Lot. Like, wow, this worldly stuff nearly got me killed, but my connection to Abraham saved me. It showed worldly success doesn't guarantee safety. But sadly, it seems the lesson didn't stick. He went back.
So he's back in Sodom,
Yeah.
still there. And then the two angels arrive, and Lot, maybe surprisingly, he actually shows them hospitality, urges them to stay at his house, makes them a meal. It feels like a flicker of the old ways, doesn't it? Kind of contrasts with Sodom itself.
It does. It shows he hadn't completely lost that sense of traditional righteousness, maybe learned from Abraham. Hospitality was huge then. But then the chilling contrast hits you like a ton of bricks before they even lie down to sleep. The men of Sodom, both young and old, all the people to the last man, surround the house. And they're not there for a friendly chat. They demand Lot bring out his guests for sexual assault. It's horrifying. And it just lays bare the total moral sewer Sodom had become, the environment Lot chose for his family.
Okay, here's where it gets really disturbing. Shocking, actually. Lot goes out to this raging mob, shuts the door behind him, trying to protect the angels, and then he offers them his two virgin daughters instead. Begs the mob, please, my brothers, don't act so wickedly.
I mean, what does that tell us? How far gone was he at this point? It's just, yeah, horrifying is the only word. It shows how deep the moral rot went. Maybe his motive started as, a twisted sense of protecting his guests. That hospitality code pushed to an insane extreme. But the method, offering his own daughters, it's utterly perverse. His values are completely warped. He put a social custom, however important he thought it was, above his most basic duty as a father. It just screams how years soaking in Sodom's values twisted his thinking, numbed his conscience. He's trying to do one right thing, protect guests, by proposing something monstrously wrong. He can't even see the contradiction. It's a terrifying example of how long-term exposure to corruption can just erode your moral judgment completely.
Thankfully, the angels step in, pull Lot back inside, strike the mob blind. Whew. But then they give him this urgent warning. Get anyone else here? Sons-in-law, sons, daughters, anyone, get them out, now. So Lot runs off to warn his future sons-in-law, the guys engaged to his daughters.
And their reaction, it's just devastating. They basically laugh in his face. The text says he seemed to his sons-in-law to be jesting, kidding, joking. Think about that. It shows the absolute cratering of his spherical credibility within his own family. His life choices, his compromises, had made him a joke to them. When the ultimate warning came, they couldn't take him seriously. Heartbreaking.
And even after that, morning comes, judgment is literally raining down soon, and Lot is still dragging his feet, but he lingered. The angels basically had to grab him, his wife, his two daughters by the hand and physically haul them out of the city. And the text adds, the Lord being merciful to him. Why? Why the delay? It's baffling, isn't it? Why linger when fire is about to fall? Maybe he was still attached to his house, his stuff, his status in Sodom. Maybe after all those years, part of him just couldn't believe it was really happening. It shows how clinging to worldly things can totally cloud your judgment, how compromise paralyzes you. You can't make the decisive break even when you need to. It raises that uncomfortable question, doesn't it? Do we sometimes get so stuck, so attached to things that are destroying us that God practically has to force us out? In Lot's case, God's mercy was so extreme, he basically dragged Lot to safety when Lot couldn't or wouldn't move himself.
And what followed was immediate, terrifying. The Lord rained on Sodom and Gomorrah sulfur and fire, total destruction. And then that image. Lot's wife, they were told, don't look back. But she did. And she became a pillar of salt, just frozen there. Yeah, that image is unforgettable and deeply symbolic. Her looking back suggests her heart was still there, still attached to Sodom, to the life they were leaving. She was out physically, but not spiritually. Not really. It's a powerful lesson. Real salvation, real leaving, has to be total. Heart and soul, not just feet. That half-hearted commitment, that lingering look back at the old life, it can be fatal.
And the story keeps getting darker, even after the escape. Lot gets scared, leaves the town he asked to be spared, Zoar, and he ends up living in a cave with just his two daughters, cut off from everyone.
The irony is just brutal, isn't it? He started out picking the best land, the the place that looked like paradise, ended up in a damp, isolated cave. Started out chasing prosperity and status, ended in fear and isolation. Primitive conditions. It shows how selfish choices often backfire spectacularly. They undermine the very things you were chasing.
And then the final awful scene in that cave. The daughters decide their only hope for descendants is, well, their plan is to get their father drunk 2 nights in a row and lie with him to preserve offspring.
It's the final proof of how deep the corruption went. It wasn't just Lot. It infected the whole family system. His daughters, raised in that Sodom environment, saw incest as a pragmatic solution. The moral compass was completely smashed. It shows the devastating ripple effect of his choices onto the next generation. And the results. The children born from this became the ancestors of the Moabites and Ammonites, nations that were often enemies of Israel later on. So that's the ultimate tragedy. Starts with spiritual privilege, ends in moral ruin, leaving a legacy of conflict and corruption. It hammers home. Our choices create the air our children breathe, merely speaking. The consequences can echo for generations.
Wow, it really is a sobering story from start to finish. So, okay, pulling it all together, what are the big takeaways for us today? What lessons should we really absorb from Lot's life?
Yeah, there are some really critical ones. First and maybe foremost is the danger of choosing by sight, not faith. Lot consistently went for what looked good right now, the immediate material payoff. He didn't use spiritual discernment. The ancient wisdom tells us, walk by faith, not by sight. Trust in the Lord. Don't lean on your own understanding. Think about that with careers. Is it just about the money, the title? Or is there a deeper fit, a better environment? Same for where you live, relationships, finances. Look beyond the surface shimmer. Second big lesson. Spiritual compromise is usually gradual, a slow fade. Lot didn't just jump into Sodom's worst sins overnight. It was a drift, closer, then dwelling, then leading. Each little step makes the next one feel less wrong. That's how it works. We see it today, right? Business ethics get fuzzy. Entertainment choices slowly push boundaries. Financial shortcuts seem okay, just this once. How do you stop it? You need clear lines in the sand. Based on your core values, you need to check in regularly. Maybe have people who can call you out. Accountability. Third, your environment profoundly shapes your spiritual health.
Lot chose a prosperous place, but a wicked one. It poisoned his family, dulled his own senses. Those old sayings, bad company corrupts good character. Guard your heart. They're not just cliches, they're survival instructions. We need to be intentional. Choose communities, church, friends, even online spaces. Choose entertainment. Choose home environments that build us up spiritually, not tear us down. Fourth, selfish decision-making has huge consequences. Lot grabbed the best land, only thought of himself. Look where it led. Damaged relationship with Abraham. Family in danger. Lost credibility. Contrast that with Abraham, generous, trusting God would provide. It's a totally different model. So in our families, careers, finances, are we just looking out for number one? Or are we considering the impact on others? Generosity matters. And finally, number 5, spiritual influence and legacy are critical. Lot's sons-in-law laughed at him. His wife looked back. His daughters committed incest. His descendants became enemies. That's a brutal legacy. It shows our kids, people around us, they watch what we do far more than what we say. Our choices set the moral temperature. What kind of spiritual inheritance are we leaving?
That's way more important than money or property.
That's a heavy list. It feels quite bleak, focusing on all the failures. But was God just absent through all this? Is there any sign of grace, any hope in Lot's story despite everything?
Well, absolutely. That's crucial too. Despite the mess Lot made, God's care is still there. Undeniably. Think about it. He protected Lot during that war. He sent angels specifically to warn him. He physically dragged him out of Sodom. He even spared the town of Zoar just because Lot asked, honoring Abraham's earlier prayers too. And there's that fascinating bit in 2 Peter where Lot is called righteous despite everything we see him do. It's complex. It suggests God saw something in Lot's heart, maybe a torment over the wickedness around him, even while his actions were deeply compromised. It highlights that difference maybe between our standing with God, being declared righteous, and the often messy process of actually living righteously day to day. God's grace is definitely bigger than our failures. But we also see the limits, or maybe the consequences, even within grace. Grace saved Lot from the fire and brimstone, yes, but it didn't erase the fallout. The loss of his wife, the corruption of his daughters, the isolation, the tainted legacy. He was saved, yet suffered tremendous loss because of his choices. You can be rescued and still bear scars.
Mercy opens a door to repent. It offers a way out. But it doesn't force us to walk through it or magically undo all the damage. But here's the hope. For anyone listening who maybe sees some of Lot's patterns in their own life, it's never truly too late. God's grace is still available, right now. The first step is acknowledging the poor choices, honestly, without excuses. Then, making a conscious decision to change those patterns. Turning away from the drift, and trusting that God's grace is sufficient not just for forgiveness, but for restoration too. There's always hope for a different ending.
That's a really important balance. A powerful warning, absolutely. Bad choices, especially those big fork-in-the-road moments, they can have devastating effects. But also that thread of hope. The lessons are so clear, though. Choose by faith. Watch out for that slow drift into compromise. Pay attention to your environment. Think beyond yourself. And yeah, understand grace saves, but choices still have consequences.
Exactly. So the final thought maybe is this. What decisions are you facing right now, big or small? Decisions that could shape your spiritual path, your family's. Are you choosing based on faith, on deeper values? Or are you being swayed by what just looks good on the surface, the easy win? What kind of legacy are you building, choice by choice, day by day? Let's learn from Lot. Avoid the pitfalls. Choose the path of faith Abraham showed us. And maybe just keep that simple, haunting phrase in mind. Remember Lot's wife.